Hi, welcome back to Music Theory Logic. My name's Andrew, and today's going to be another music theory breakdown where we recreate popular songs so that I can show you some of the music theory. If you haven't already, you'd help me out a ton by subscribing to the channel. Without further ado, let's go ahead into the breakdown of the day. So today we are talking about Heat Waves by Glass Animals. If you haven't heard this track before, I suggest you pausing this video and going and listening to it from the beginning. I'm just going to play some sections of this track, and then we're going to talk about where these notes come from. Here it is. Now this is actually live guitar. Just kind of a cool intro. I'll talk about this. It really makes the music feel like it explodes here. I'm going to go ahead and stop it there just in the interest of keeping this as concise as possible for you. Let's talk about the theory. We are in the key of C sharp minor. C sharp minor has the same notes, or has a relative major of E major. It has 4 black keys. The notes are going to be C sharp, D sharp, E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B, and C sharp. Cool. Now this song actually has an interesting chord, which is a borrowed chord, which is going to be kind of fun to talk about. So the basic chord progression is going from a 1 chord, it's a C sharp minor, going down to the 7 chord, major chord, going to the minor 5 chord, G sharp minor, followed by what is a major 4 chord. It's not technically within the key. We would have a minor 4. But we could call this a dominant of dominant. We could call this basically an F sharp major coming from the key of B. B is a dominant to the relative major, where we're going E major. Lots of crazy words to say that, like, essentially we don't have to only use diatonic chords, a fancy word for chords from the scale, but we can actually borrow chords from scales close to this chord progression. Basically, like if I'm have a B major here, I could use some sort of chord from B major, and that's exactly what this chord is doing. So B major is a 7, so this is a 5 of 7 in the actual key. Then the song basically repeats the same chord progression that we had, the same 4 chords, only the second time, instead of getting the minor 1, we get the relative major, so an E major. That really gives this chord progression kind of an interesting feel to it. Let's go ahead through the different sections. So we're hearing a descending 808 that's happening pretty much the whole time. It's going from those root notes. It's going from a C sharp to a B to a G sharp to an F sharp. Then it's essentially repeating, only instead of C sharp the second time, it's an E, E, up to B, then G sharp, down to F sharp. The main part of the song comes from this arpeggio-ish riff that's happening. It is an arpeggio, just kind of spread out. So It sounds like this on its own. Now it sounds a lot different without the 808 because the 808 establishes the downbeat, like where that 1 is. If we don't play the 808, it starts to sound like the first note from that arpeggio pattern is the 1. So together, those sound like this. Cool. So it's basically doing all the chord notes that I showed you in the beginning. The pitch of this is going C sharp up to the 5 from the chord, so C sharp to G sharp, repeating the G sharp, coming back to the 3 of E. That same exact pattern's applied for the next chord, the B major, going up to the 5th, coming back to the 3rd, same exact pattern. The last 2 chords do the same pattern rhythmically, only the last note is still the 5th. So this pattern is essentially repeating, but again, it doesn't fully repeat because the next time we would have a C sharp, it's going to an E major, or E up to its 5th. The rhythm that we're doing here is the first note's happening on the 2nd 16th note, then we're happening on the 3rd 16th note for the 5th. We're skipping again to the 2nd 16th note, and then this time the 4th 16th note of a group of 4. This we could call some syncopation. It gives us some cool like rhythmic elements to it, and once again sounds like this. Now what's interesting about the song is that the introduction is definitely a guitar. It's going through like a rotary cabinet. I'm doing that just within Logic Pro. I'm also high pass filtering it. That essentially makes it sound thin. It almost sounds like when this song was written, perhaps I know Glass Animals are a band, so perhaps a guitar player played this chord progression, and then to make it sound more like indie electro, they put that arpeggio pattern on this bell type pluck synth. On top of that, we get a subtle organ that's happening. It's teaming up on the same rhythms as the second 3 notes. It's filling in the chords together. That gives it a cool stab. So it's like when the melody note was playing the 5th, this is going to play the whole chord. When the melody note's still on the 5th, it's playing the whole chord all together. Sounds like a bigger texture. So a couple things that this song shows us. One, the chord progression is simple, although it is not literally just 4 chords repeating. That goes a really long way to making your music more interesting. It's not like the chord they're replacing is completely different because, again, it's the relative major. It's E major. It's a really important chord to the key of C sharp minor, but it is different. So that's pretty cool. The drums are somewhat simple. We have a standard backbeat, so the snare is hitting on 2 and 4. If you haven't gotten my music theory textbook, I always link to it below. It's a textbook where I've tried to take the most basic principles of music theory and present them to you in a really digestible form. It comes with downloadable chapters where you actually see the drums in whatever DAW you're using. This is called Piano Roll. And in that book, I talk about standard backbeats. And a standard backbeat is going to be where the snare is on beat 2 and beat 4. And that's exactly what's happening. This clap snare type sound is really giving us the point of reference for everything else. So let's hear the drums just on their own. Cool. So pretty straight up 16th notes. There is some subtle swing that's happening there. So there's some displacement of every other cymbal. Goes a long way to make this feel more live. Then finally, our kick drum is hitting on the 1. The pattern basically repeats every other measure. So the first measure, it's going to be on beat 1, and then it's 2 8th notes starting on beat 3. Then that repeats beat 1, And instead of 2/8 notes the second time, we're going 2/16 notes to the 4th 16th note. This is kind of like 2/16 notes, and then where the middle one's tied. We could call this syncopation, which is a fancy word for a displacement of the groove. So altogether, that first section, the verse, are all those 4 elements that I just walked you through. It sounds like this. I'm going to play it into the chorus. Say the chords here. So this is that C sharp, the B, the G sharp, that F sharp, the E, back to the B, the G sharp, down to the F sharp. Chorus. Now this section is pretty much identical. It just has an additional element in there. It has basically the chord progression happening on what sounds to be like kind of a pad type instrument. It's hitting on the half note rhythm, the rhythm of the speed of the chord progression. It's repeating those 4 chords the whole time. So we hear the C sharp minor on top of the E arpeggio. The reason that works is the top note of an E arpeggio, that 5th, basically kind of makes that feel like a minor 7th. So that's all the music stuff that's happening in the song, aside from the actual bridge. Now, in the second verse, there's no organ for the first 8 bars or 16. Then we get the organ added in. We then go to a chorus, and this is somewhat interesting. The chorus section, instead of being a full 16 like it was the first time we hear it, it goes to half that amount, to 8. And then we come to kind of this breakdown. It sounds like this. Really all that's happening there is the drums have changed. Nothing's changing from the drums aside from we're taking out a lot of the 16th note cymbals. We're just on an upbeat 8th note on the closed hi-hat. And then finally we have a floor tom that happens right before our kick drum. That makes that feel like a breakdown. And from there we go to this mini bridge section. We come back to a big full chorus, and then we go to like the full bridge section. So I'll play the full bridge section, and then I'll explain those chords. It sounds really empty without the vocals, I will admit. Cool. So for a moment, the song kind of, we could call it a transposition. It's moving to the key of E major, which again is the same as C sharp minor. Its only difference is that we typically resolve to E in the key of E major, and we resolve to C sharp minor in the key of C sharp minor, with again the same notes. So instead of starting on a C sharp minor, we're starting on an E. We do the same notes, but we're kind of ascending the chord progression. We go E major up to that F sharp, up to our G sharp minor. Then we do what is basically the 5 chord in E. This is a B major chord. It's actually inverted, a different note than the B is on the bass. Then that same chord progression repeats, E major up to F sharp, up to G sharp, and then finally we do a 5 chord. So just like how the other chord progression in this song didn't literally rotate 4 chords and just repeat that same section, the bridge also, when it goes to repeat, there's 1 chord that's changed. That goes a long way to making this song feel less repetitive. And then finally, we get some sound design stuff that's happening. There's violins that come in halfway through the bridge. They're really subtle. I have them under a low pass filter. Cool. So the last thing I want to talk about is just how to make the intro from this. So it's pretty simple. I played the chord progression. It's an arpeggio fill without any effects. It sounds like this. So I added the rotary cabinet, which gives it that feeling like it's moving. And then I cut off everything below 570 hertz. that makes it sound, again, like even thinner. If you go back and listen to the intro to that song, it feels like the music really explodes. This is a really cool technique that you can use in really any style of music. If you start out making it feel really small or thin, and then you get rid of that effect later on, it's going to make whenever you get rid of that effect feel extra big. The thing I'll leave you with today is that music is all about dynamics. It's not about loud and soft in the moment, but it's about how the music takes us through this journey, and things sound louder after quiet sections, and things sound quiet after loud sections, and things sound dark after bright sections, and all of this. It's about the contrast. So hopefully that helped you. If you did find that helpful, you would help me out a ton by subscribing to the channel. If you subscribe to the channel, I will be seeing you next Friday for another music theory breakdown. On Tuesdays, we come out with another video that pertains to something to do with my lifestyle or making music for a living. That is the mental game, or perhaps things like music publishers, or how we get paid, or tools I use to make music, all of these different things. Once again, my name's Andrew. Thanks for tuning in, and have a great day. Till next time.